Hello, I am the robotic device. This is a PlayStation Vita 2000. Now this isn't an unboxing, I've already used it so that I can answer questions, and if I don't answer any questions, feel free to ask me. First off, this is the box. It was imported from Japan using Nippon Yasan. I paid about $225. The price shouldn't really be an issue to you. Personally, I think it was worth paying extra. There are deals going on right now for $200 for the 1000, but what they give you really doesn't make it much worth it. Personally, I prefer to have the 2000 over the 1000 with, say, 2 extra games. Even if those games are on sale right now for $5 on PlayStation Network anyway. So the box came perfect condition. Inside, there was hardly anything, really. The entire box is entirely in Japanese, apart from basic PlayStation symbols. Clearly, it wasn't meant to be shipped to the US standard. But more importantly, here's the device itself. And I have it in this nice little case for good reason. I'm going to recommend it because this is your standard PlayStation Vita case. It's pretty thick, but I don't think you'll care because inside, if I open it up, is first my PlayStation Vita, which takes a second to get out. And second, inside the exact same bag, my old PSP, even in its protective case. And for a quick comparison, there's the size difference. They are pretty big. I was surprised with the Vita. I thought it would be about the same size, but it's not. Significantly less thick. I mean, look at that. I know this is in a case and all, but it's still pretty thick without the case. And I need the case anyways. I would recommend anybody who has a PSP to get a case now, because they are getting pretty old. I understand this is new and probably should have a case more, but I just trust new things more than old things. But there's the device, perfect condition. And to start off, Nippon Yasan, I would recommend them. It just takes them a little while. So to get a good look at it, here you go. Sticks work fine. Here's the back. Here's the top. There's the bottom. And there is our new little micro USB, and I have a Samsung Galaxy S4. I'm pretty sure just about any other Droid phone in the world will use the exact same port. It's just a standard micro USB phone charger. All you need to use it. And once again, the device itself. Moving on, one of the biggest questions about the importing of Vitas is the X and circle buttons. And really, it's not that big a problem at all. So to turn on the device, there we go. We got our beautiful LCD. Get rid of that. Most people, it won't even matter because they use touchscreen, and touchscreen works perfectly fine on here. So let's say I want to select a game. I'm going to use this instead to select a game, and I want to select Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. I can press X all I want. It's not going to do a single thing. I can just keep on pressing it. I press circle, it works. Press circle again, it works. Pressing X will not do anything. And while this loads, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the screen. It looks like you can get a good look at it. It is an LCD screen, and I believe at 554 resolution. And for a comparison, here is my Samsung Galaxy S4, which is what I believe a 1080p thing. The screens seem to be about the same size. They seem a little bit thicker, but maybe it's just me looking. And volume buttons are at the top. Just going to turn that down. And I really don't see a difference. Personally, I prefer LCD to OLED, which is on the original PlayStation Vita, but I can't see the difference between AMOLED and LCD, and I even think that they're comparable. If this was LCD, I wouldn't even notice. I prefer LCD over OLED most of the time. Plus, there's that burn-in issue, which is pretty evident with OLED that made me want to get the PlayStation Vita 2000. So here we are at the screen. I press start because you can't press any of the buttons anyway. And let's say I go to load game and I press circle. It's going to back me out to the menu again. Because in games, typically it's assigned by the game itself. So press start, and now I press X on load game like I would normally. Now that we're in another menu, which is save selection, it switches again. So if I press X, it's not going to do anything. If I press circle, it will select it. And hit yes, it selects it. So you use circle for that purpose, only in those menus. In the games themselves, works just fine. So I'm not actually going to play the game. LCD, it looks absolutely beautiful. You will not... I've never had a Vita 1000. I can't say that there's really a difference. People say it's an obvious downgrade, and I cannot disagree more with that. It might be personal preference. I prefer LCD to everything else, but seeing the OLED screen in the store, I personally think that the LCD looks better. And even then, I just like the device more. I think it's a better device. But other than the screen, which is the most important to some people, if you see it in person, trust me, you're not going to have a problem with it. It looks beautiful. In fact, maybe not as beautiful as OLED to some people, but it's just beautiful as it is. I can't disagree. I really can't. But moving on, battery life. Says it's about an hour better. I'm not sure. I can compare it to my 3DS XL. My 3DS XL, I get worried and plug it in about 3 hours after using it, roughly. Idling on the 3DS XL isn't very good. If I just let it idle, it will die within a day, usually. Sometimes within 2 days, depends on what it's doing. If it's on menus, it won't. But in games, it just idles pretty high. This, I've let it idle for about a day and a half, and it just didn't care. It basically stayed at the same amount of battery. So I can tell that the operating system on the Vita just is great for conserving energy when it's not in use. In comparison to the normal battery, I'd say that this probably would last close to the 6 hours that it says it will. I used it for 4.5 hours, and it dropped to about 15%, 20 to 15%, somewhere in there. I don't have a clear figure, and really, that's all I need. I don't care. I'll plug it in before it dies, and I'll plug it in about 20% anyway. So, honestly, that's not really a problem. The extra hour is nice, though, and I'm fairly sure that it will last that extra hour. But the next thing is with the SD card, which is right here. I bought a 16GB SD card from Newegg for $32, and it kind of disables one of the points of the PlayStation Vita 2000, and that point would be that with the 2000, you get 1GB of internal storage. Now, that's great if you use physical media, such as this and this, just physical copies instead of digital copies. And I know I got Gravity Rush for free, and I have a physical copy right next to me. But it disables it when you put in a physical card, so it's kind of useless at that point. So if you don't plan to buy a card and you just want to play physical media, you're perfectly fine, you won't even notice, because it'll just be using saves. But with the card, you're gonna notice. It's not gonna let you use it. But if you're using PlayStation Network PS Plus, you upload all your saves to the cloud anyway, and that's all the 1GB's really good for, is saves, so you shouldn't really see an issue anyway. Now, I've noticed a couple of different things between the 1000 and 2000, despite never actually using the 1000. And that would be, of course, thickness. This is not as thick. It's not as heavy. And I have held one. I've never bought one. That's my point. The buttons are circular down here. That's a good indicator that you have a 2000, and I really like it. They're not flush quite. I don't know how to really put it, but they're pretty dang close. I figured they would be about the same as up here. And one of the complaints about the 1000 was those buttons are too hard to press, which they aren't anymore. All the other buttons are fine. These are pretty small. I mean, honestly, in comparison to, say, the PSP, those buttons are pretty small. And that's not really a problem, because with the PSP, if I just kind of hit the edge, it has play. Very obvious play. Whereas this, they just click straight down every single time. Click, 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 click. Nice and satisfactory. You don't move it all over the place. It's very stable. The top, say I move over to this side, I can press in down here and the entire thing moves down. I can press up here and the end doesn't. So I can make it wiggle, which is not terrible. So if you're moving your fingers around a lot, you might notice. It works either way, but up here you have to apply more pressure. Down here, as long as you're pushing down, it works, and you won't care. It's not an issue at all. They don't squeak. They don't do anything like that. It's just typical that. Another thing would be importing. I didn't have a problem. I honestly bought it and completely expected to get a defective unit. I figured I'd get it in, and because I ordered it from Japan, it would be broken, of course, and I'd have lost my money. I honestly thought that would happen, and I cannot say how happy I was that it wasn't. I tested the thing through and through, over and over again, to make sure there was nothing wrong with it, and there is nothing wrong with it. Nippon Yasan packaged it great, there was nothing wrong with it. It just was great. Although there was one thing. In the box, in Japan, you're supposed to get a bundle with 3 months of PlayStation Network credit, whatever you want to call it, membership. I did not get it. Maybe your provider, wherever you buy it from, will. Mine didn't. So, something to keep in mind. But, that's not a deal breaker. I mean, it was $17 to do that, but I don't care. I prefer this device anyway. I got it in white because I figured it looked more Japanese, and since all the ones in America are black, except, of course, for the Assassin's Creed ones and the one they're just now starting to sell, I'll get white. Plus, of course, I have a black PSP, so now I can kind of tell the difference. I figured they'd be about the same size. I wanted to tell the difference between them. So, there's that. I had no problem importing it. It just took 2 weeks to get here, which I can accept. I ordered it right after Christmas, so they went on break, and I just kind of got unlucky in that regard. There is one last thing about the device itself, and it's actually not a problem with it. With the sticks, I always use the sticks, and I feel like the right one is looser than the left, but that's not true. If I use the left one with my left thumb, and then turn it, and use the right one with my left thumb, they feel exactly the same, and vice versa. It's a problem with my hands. There's nothing wrong with the sticks. It's just that my thumbs feel it different. I suppose it might be because I'm holding it different, but it's my fault. So if you feel like that, test it with your thumb on each one, see if they feel about the same, instead of like with the right one. They feel different, but they're not. And then when you use your same hand, they feel exactly the same. It was amazing to me. I really thought that would be what killed it, and it didn't. It was my own fault. It's just my feeling. There's nothing wrong with the device. And it's not like it was a problem anyway. It was just like a feeling. There's very, very, very slight play. Very slight. It doesn't matter. I tested it in multiple games, such as Killzone, and the dead zone on it is pretty high. So you won't really notice it. Getting precision and dropping it to about half of maximum takes some doing. Takes a little bit of effort, but it's not hard, and it's understandable with the little mini sticks. I would recommend getting covers for the sticks, but I haven't bought them myself, so I'm not going to recommend any. But all in all, it's a great device. Works really well. Battery lasts a long time. I haven't tried the PS4 link yet because I haven't bought a PS4. I'm waiting for Watch Dogs, PlanetSide, and Drive Club to all come out. After that, I'll tell you, I haven't tried PS3 link either because no games are on PS3 and I don't own a PS3. I've been Xbox for the longest time. But it works great. The cameras look good, even though they're kind of a gimmick. The microphone worked good. I used Skype on it, which is, of course, right there. Nobody had any trouble clarifying. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's better than this microphone I'm using right now. So, if that's any comparison, there you go. Pretty sure the video quality is probably better too. But, I don't know. It looked great to me. It looked great to everybody who was watching it. The thing about the Skype app, by the way, you can't type to people, so that might be a killer for anybody looking to use Skype on it. But, what are you going to do? The other thing is there isn't a 3G model, which honestly isn't a big deal. Sure, I'd like a 3G model in case I ever decided, hey, I'll go buy 3G, but I never will, and I don't care about it because it barely does anything. So, there's that. But in the end, great device. I had a bunch of questions about it that nobody ever answered, and hopefully I answered a couple of them. The main thing is the LCD looks great. I think it looks better than the OLED, and if not, then it still looks absolutely amazing. You're not going to find any trouble with it whatsoever. It's just great. It really is. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask them. Thanks for watching my video.